Welcome to The Inner Wonder. I'm Alex and I'm your host.
Hi thinkers, I'm Alex and I'm your host. Today with us, Andrea and Christophe. Andrea is an expert in joy. She holds a PhD in economics and has managed and led various managing positions. Currently, she's the host of the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast and project, an incredible project that aims to understand what brings us happiness through surveys of people. Christophe is a psychologist by degree. He's an expert in humanizing business and a successful entrepreneur in various fields. Together, Andrea and Christophe recently wrote the Human Growth Code, which I have it here with me. Exactly, we all have it here with us. An amazing book which we will dive in later on. So, as you can understand, thinkers, today with me I have two incredible CVs. But if we were to remove the CVs from the picture and ask, who is Christophe? What would you say?
Who is Christophe? A person who values freedom above everything else, who believes that curiosity and play is the biggest joy in life, and who is always getting into trouble because he challenges authority.
Wow. That's a very nice introduction. And how about you, Andrea?
So Andrea is, I would say, is filled with excitement about every single moment. To be alive, it's a pure joy, especially when I can be surrounded with people that I love. And I'm just loving each adventure, each experience, and as much the highs and the lows that life has brought my way. And I feel very, very grateful and privileged to be alive and to be here with you today.
I guess if we merge a part of the curiosity and a part of the joy there, then I can really see the roots of the book that you both co-authored. And at this moment, I want to tell you, in every episode of The Inner Wonder, we use a muse, which is a source of inspiration for something greater. And in this episode, you two are the muses for us. And I would like to know, what was your source of inspiration for delivering the Human Growth Code that we're going to uncover today?
The source of inspiration was other people in many ways. I was fortunate to meet Andrea at a most unlikely friend, at the most unlikely place, in Cannes, in south of France, and without too much questioning, and I felt a natural curiosity in her, which sparked me, and we just decided there and then, not knowing what, not knowing how, we'll do something together. And we just started out without planning too much, but at the same time, and due to maybe a good thing, all of a sudden we felt pressure to deliver something. And so the inspiration was that there are different playbooks out there who keep tapping into the wrong emotions. The emotions that Andrea, both me and Andrea do not value, that trigger us towards fear rather than towards growth. And wanting to know the science and the stories and the inspiration and providing it to the world, that there is another way. There is not just a fear code in the world, but there is a growth code, and wanting to provide it in a workable manner. that was the inspiration. The world is so easily triggered by the wrong code, a code that doesn't help us grow our human potential. So we thought we can do something about that. And we wrote a book with that in mind.
Is fear the opposite of growth?
Fear choices is the opposite of growth choices. So fear choices hold us back, where growth choices allow us to move forward. And if there's one similarity between, there's many similarity, but one similarity also between Andrea and me, we hate getting stuck.
Right.
Getting stuck is a fear choice.
So it's because oftentimes I'm thinking with myself, I can find myself in situation where I felt fear, but maybe those situations made me grow. Or what do you say? So it's more of a choices that result because of fear rather than the actual emotion of fear?
Adversity can be a wonderful source of growth. It can, and both the life of Andrea and my life has been painted by quite big challenges, existential challenges, which have enabled us to grow. So I would say adversity is not necessarily fear. Adversity is a challenge that can bring out the best and the worst of us, and under the right conditions, they help us grow.
And if I may build on what Christophe is saying, what you touched upon is really how we choose in every moment to look at anything that comes our way. And if we're sensing a heightened level of stress or anxiety or fear that emerges because of something that has happened, we have actually a choice to look at it as either on one spectrum, an opportunity to be challenged, to grow, to evolve, or we can look at it as something on the opposite spectrum that has the possibility to really threaten our existence, our reputation, and so on. And depending on actually the choice that we make, the interesting thing is that there's different things that emerge in our bodies. And rather than feeling a dopamine spike at the level of the brain, we're now going to have a cortisol spike that will actually, it's a stress hormone that really brings us down, hinders our creativity, and so on. So in every single moment, we truly have a choice on how we react to those challenges. And even if we feel a sense of fear, I think we need to dig deeper in getting to know ourselves better, because self-awareness is really key to living joyfully, living life fully every single moment. And imagine if every single day of your life was already mapped out and you knew what would happen. Wouldn't that be totally boring? Right? I think if we remain curious and excited about the unknown and what is about to unfold, even though, maybe sometimes we imagine things will unfold in a specific way, but actually it turns out completely different. Actually, there's beauty in that as well. And you're simply redirected. Life is redirecting you on a path that could actually be even better than what you had even originally imagined. So even going back to what Christophe was saying about the inspiration behind the book, I mean, the path we started walking on when we committed to writing the book was filled with unknowns, but it was really the fun and the joy in the actual journey that emerged through the conversations and the dialogues and the sharings of the various experiences and wisdoms we each have. And I think, as I said, that's really one important takeaway, hopefully, for your listeners to feel more empowered on how they choose to react to things that may be outside of their control. But your emotions are always 100% within your control.
I love it. It's I think it's so nice for me personally, oftentimes feeling that sense of power that I have the decision to make a choice, either that would take me to growth irrespective of the situation. I think it's very, very empowering, I would say. So that's great. Thank you so much, both of you. It was very, very interesting perspectives. I wanted to ask, I think a core aspect of the book is, it goes by the title, The Human Growth Code. It's about humanizing either business or the way we look into growth. Christophe, I think you're an expert in that. So I want to understand. So if you can explain, what does that mean? What does it mean to humanize something?
Yeah. Well, in the most simplest terms, it becomes relatable. You know, we humanize the earth by calling it Mother Earth. And so that's the lowest form of make it relatable, is one way of humanizing. But when it becomes relatable, you can engage, you can care, you can put more love into it. You can put more desire for development into it. So when we speak about humanizing business, it's taking something that's quite mechanical and functions with a lot of transactions and enabling it to become relatable, function with more care, and be a growth engine, not only for money, but for meaning. And that's why stories are important. That's why identity is important. That's why purpose is important. That's why joy is important. You know, there's a lot of joy in meaning. I just came back from, I have in Spain a sports club, and I see a lot of social leaders that extract a lot more meaning out of what they do there than I see people who are operating in a much bigger job. You know, their social ties are day to it. They put their rhythms of the day into it. So that's what we call looking at that human dimension and that human take on everything. It allows us to put care, love, commitment, value into something which very often is not done in the context of business, or as Andrea will say, in the context of economics. Everything becomes a commodity.
And to build on that, it's almost as if humans have become disposable assets, sadly, for certain leaders and certain organizations. And that's truly the mind shift that we want to bring into organizations, that we need to look at humans that have infinite potential for growth, for contribution, and that they would not only grow themselves as human beings to be able to be a better contributor to our society, but also to be a better contributor to the organization itself that would lead actually to the business growth. So it's really about helping and assisting leaders to look beyond the traditional KPIs and metrics that are often financially driven, and to embrace more the human metrics. I mean, how often would you see a leader monitoring, the level of joy for their employees? Often it's more, what is our profits? What are, year over year growth, months over year, growth? Like the metrics have become dehumanized to some extent. And that's what we wanted to actually bring forth in the Human Growth Code, is new principles, new ideas that are backed by science, actually, to show that when we create this shift, there's tremendous value, not only at the human level, but at the business level as well.
You know, a lot of things in business was designed from a paradigm of war, military concepts that they've entered a business, and yet we show that, you know, sometimes to perform in the arena of business, you can win with empathy games rather than with war games, and that's then what we as business humanizers try and help people play with empathy games rather than war games, because the one is coming from a military background and the other is coming more from an anthropological developmental perspective,
which at the end of the day, it's the core of all our evolution, right? So I understand, based on what you're saying, that there is definitely a value for business leaders to put human at their core, also backed by science, and there's a lot of tips in the book that I'm not going to spoil, which is, of course, helping the leaders to go into that change. But I can understand, if we put ourselves in the shoes of a leader right now who is under the pressure of delivering good KPIs, high financial results for the shareholders, and although could see the value or maybe say, yeah, no, I understand humans at the core, but I can understand it might be very hard for them to make that change. It's scary. We've been looking at business over EBITDA, over all these metrics that are everywhere, and you're being judged at the end of it. And it's hard to do it. I'm going to bring a simple example here. Starbucks changed their CEO, right? And the performance has been quite challenging for Starbucks. And it was very interesting. There was an article online saying how this CEO came in last year in his first day talking about people, talking about work-life balance, asking the employees in his first big meeting to close their eyes and think. And obviously, this is just one example. But at the end of the day, if the results were not there, he felt the shrink, right? So I understand that being a leader right now, it's hard to take your eyes from those KPIs, even if with this way you can achieve even better results. It might feel scary. So what would you say to such a leader?
Well, when he's looking at the KPIs only, he's busy with management, not leadership. So I think very often we confuse the two. So choosing your measures well is important. We have commodified the world in as much as possible. Therefore, most commodity markets operate by fear metrics, scarcity metrics, not abundance metrics. I would say, because you're talking about Starbucks here, the founder of Starbucks, who left, came back, turned it around, now left again, he's always put a lot of human value into the system with his cup of love. So balancing, so I would say if you only humanize business and you only take the people side of it, you're only doing half of the equation. You still need to make sure that the organization is healthy next to the people being in good health. And that's a balancing act. But thinking it's the one or the other, I mean, our view is very clear. If you unlock human growth, you unlock business growth. You have to start with the people, because they have to implement the strategies, they have to be engaged, they have to get whatever strategy or vision you have, turn it into a reality on their own terms. So I would say be courageous to know that parts that you are not measuring right now. Doesn't mean they cannot be measured, but you are not measuring. Those parts matter more to getting to the parts that you can measure. It's just the language, the tools, even the framework. And we hope that with the Human Growth Code, we're giving these leaders an extra additional language, narrative, and measurements to unlock that hidden potential in people, which is very often ignored.
It feels like as you were speaking, it reminds me of that if you're looking at one KPI, maybe the shortest way to get there is not the fastest. And this is where really putting the Human Growth Code can unlock that potential.
Well, to be very, I think it's not always a story that you'll find in the book, and is the story on Rick Warren, who created the Saddleback, the biggest church community in the world. And his biggest insight was it's not all up to the leader. It's also about creating the space and the room for others to lead. And scaling leadership is even sometimes more important than being the leader. Too many leaders think it's all up to them and they are the hero of the story, and therefore try and control the system with their KPIs. And a KPI at its best is a good feedback loop to see the health of the system. How are you doing? It's a performance indicator. If they become obsessive about it, they don't see it just as a feedback loop, but make it a target, make it about everything about that piece of feedback, then they've lost the usefulness of that KPI. The KPI is a piece of information to give you a sense of where the system, the business system in which we have to operate, is at. So today, with the amount of intelligence that's present, we can deal better with complexity, with the diversity of KPIs.
I would also make one more suggestions for those leaders that are possibly too over-focused, let's just say, on the financial metrics. Take the first step to begin reflecting on what are the emotions that your actions, inactions, or words are generating within your team. Because there's extensive research that has shown that when we're able to elevate what is called a positive affective tone, in other words, the positive emotions that team members feel, it actually energizes them, it gets them to be more courageous, more excited, and more enthusiastic about the task that they're about to embark on. If they're feeling more the negative affective tone, this is where they would have more frustration, you're going to have more resistance, and it's not conducive to being at your best ultimately in terms of productivity or even creativity. So by simply asking yourself, how is my team feeling? How am I even showing up as a leader? Am I showing up as a leader that is excessively micromanaging and directing and giving orders? Or am I one that is more asking questions and encouraging and empowering others to think on their feet and experiment and maybe sometimes even fail, because there's beauty even in those failures because they're so positive from the learnings we can get from them. So monitoring emotions of your team and even yourself, and what is your tell to ask ratio? If you're very often in the tell mode, do this, do that constantly to your team, rather than asking, well, how would you deal with this specific challenge? What would be some potential solutions that you may recommend? That elevates the positive emotions that people feel, despite maybe some preliminary fear that maybe some people may have that have never been empowered in such a way. But that is the most beautiful gift we can give people, because ultimately being a leader is not about necessarily giving orders, but rather inspiring people to elevate their game and do things that come from their own heart rather than always being told what to do.
From that, I will 100% keep the tell to ask ratio. Love that. It's the first time I hear it, and it's a really, really, really nice thing to have in mind, I think, as a leader. In the Human Growth Code, there is the 4R framework, which is the base of how then the book evolves in understanding how you can go about this code. And we're talking about relevance, resilience, relationships, and resourcefulness. So I would like to ask you, how do those 4 R's link with each other? Whether one is more important than the other, or whether you need to start from one and then go to another? How is the interplay between the 4 R's?
It's like a piano. They tune well together, but it's a structuring framework. So the 4 R's is like a marketing tool to be able to deal with that diversity of human potential, the human plus factors. So we used it to order, and then obviously we use the 4R to make it easy to remember, like the 4 P's or the 6 S's, or for simplicity we sometimes had to sacrifice specificity. So but they do work well together. I would say what's most important for a company is very often, we just recently had done diagnostics, because behind us there's an assessment tool, and we were doing work with a company whose core identity was rooted in being employee owned, and having a sense of strong empowerment. And yet when we asked people what they valued in life, autonomy was strong. But then when you see how people experience it at work, it was underperforming. There was a huge gap. And that is a resourcefulness challenge, because you're limiting leadership. If people do not feel empowered to step into the arena and take leadership, you're missing a big capacity to grow as an organization and to perform as an organization. Now that's just one example. But then we have another company where their brand, in essence, is about bringing joy to the world. And then when we measured the joy capacity of this organization to its people, it was rather weak. So I would say the framework is built on existential questions that every individual, every group, and every organization has to face at some time or another. At some time in our life, and some call it a midlife crisis for men, let's put it that way, is who am I? Am I still relevant? That we would call a relevance challenge. And everyone has to go through that, especially when the market change, or if you look at AI, there's a lot of question around, is the human even relevant? Right. So you need a new narrative, you need a new sense of self-worth. So when you are growing very fast, and the leadership has to take everything on his shoulders, and not enough people are stepping in to to fill the void, then you have a resourcefulness challenge. Or when you think about, we all have a desire to belong to something bigger than to be part of community, to feel not separated. Ending the separation is a human need, and that's where relationships, ending the isolation, ending the separation, that's where, and then when you get maybe older, it's even a more mature organization, you say, how do you keep delivering without burning up? We call that sustainable performance in another way. So when you ask, but all these angles have a strong human and business angle to them, you need to understand right now, for where you have to move forward next, what is that's the biggest existential challenge that you are facing right now, to then tap into the right piece of the growth code, or the Human Growth Code. So it's context dependent, it's group dependent, it's time dependent. So there is no absolute, but there is a playbook for each one of those. And sometimes we only know how to play let's call it a relevance playbook, where in many organizations, relevance is not the issue. They just have a very weak community, and they're not part of the communities that they are operating in, which makes them feel separated, isolated. And when that's the case, then you need a playbook for building the code for building relationships.
And the 4R framework can also be looked upon as where all organizations and cultures have things that are done super well, and some things that may require enhancements or improvement to really elevate the overall performance. And that's really where the 4R framework comes in, to really open the eyes of executives and teams on those untapped opportunities. That's really what we're sharing in the book, and through the diagnostic that we're doing, that is really confidential and private to each organization. It opens their eyes to new possibilities, because often as leaders, we have blind spots. We think we're doing certain things very, very well, and such a diagnostic allows a leader to have a different and fresh perspective on particularly measures that we rarely talk about. I mean, if you're really stepping beyond the 4R, and each one of the 4 Rs has 3 dimensions, we have 12 dimensions that we explore in the book. And we've spoken about joy. There's masteries, there's awe, there's dimensions that there's flow. And often these dimensions are rarely explored, and it's sad, because that's where magic lies to some extent. And as I said, some companies may need just a boost in one specific area or multiple areas to truly elevate the overall culture, overall business performance, and overall engagement of employees. But it's really going to vary tremendously from one company to another. There's cultural dimensions that come into play. And of course, right now in organizational settings where we often have 5 generations that are working, every day together, it becomes very complex to manage such different expectations of individuals. So the insights that we bring with the 4R framework when we do diagnostics with company allows us to break down teams, divisions, or really look at the entire organization to really explore those untapped opportunities.
Yeah, but there's always opportunity to do things better.
What I get from what you're saying is that even the Human Growth Code itself is humanizing in every organization that you go to. And it feels to me, based on what, for example, Christophe said, that it really depends on also what the vision and what the core value of the company is up to where they tap in. But also based on, Andrea, what you said, that it's not just as a book for everyone. You go into the companies about this diagnostic, that you follow up with them, and then you understand exactly where they can tap in. And I think that's a very interesting aspect that is, I think, adds these actionable insights that you get from the book and from the framework. At this point, I would like to say firstly that the book is very beautiful. The graphics, the design of the book, honestly, I'm just going to show like just a little bit of the images and the colors, and it's just a joy to look at. Is also like really a joy. So very good job on that. It's really amazing. But I would like to get some quotes that I liked on the 4 R's. And then I like to, my favorite one was on resilience. And amazing image once again. But I would like to ask you, it says here, the secret to longevity is to welcome change. And I made a couple of pauses when I read that. It sounds to me like a small treasure. I don't know, Andrea, what does that tell you, and what does it tell the book?
Well, I think there's multiple ways we can look at longevity, and the way we're looking at it is really from how do you ensure that you're enjoying the journey and that you have maximum energy, mental, physical, emotional energy to actually bring your best version to whatever you may be doing at work, in your personal life, because if you are focused simply on longevity and living longly, for a long time, but that journey is very painful, it's going to be a very dark and long period in your life. So longevity, when it is fueled and connected to growth and curiosity, is really bringing a very different energy and a different focus on what truly matters along the way.
I will add, because this is a literal quote from a great friend of ours and supporter of Satish Kumar, who, when we interviewed him on change and his definition of change, we asked him what's his secret to longevity,
right?
And his 2 words he shared, and we struggled for a long time to even think about calling the book Welcome Change, but he said, and he's a wonderful saint who wrote also the book on radical love, so he says welcoming change is the secret to longevity.
Which at first might sound a bit counterintuitive, that change is so tiring, or I don't want change, I'm just like in my comfort zone, which is more, easy and stuff. But it's actually the change that can bring the longevity. Welcome change.
And that brings more joy to our lives as well, because imagine, even we spoke about flow earlier, right? To tap into the power of flow, there's this optimal challenge and skill ratio. And if you're always doing the same task over and over and again, the reality is that it becomes repetitive, but at the same time, you also get better along the way. You're learning and growing. And imagine if you're just maintaining the same activities without challenging yourself, you're losing an opportunity for continued growth. So that's what we encourage. And even when in the section that talks about flow, we encourage people to always think about that optimal skill and challenge ratio. So if you've really done something for a certain period of time very well, you've grown, evolved, it's now time to rise up to a new challenge, because otherwise you're going to be getting in a state of boredom, and that's not fun. But when you choose a challenge that you may want to embrace, it's also important to not push yourself too far to the edge, because then you're going to be feeling a sense of anxiety. So that optimal skills and challenge dimension is absolutely key to continued growth and evolution.
On relevance, you start by saying, don't just try to matter by winning, win by mattering. And for me, it feels like there is what this quote is trying to say, it's more to change your focus. And based on the discussion we've had, the focus in this quote, what it says is the focus is not to win, the focus is to matter. And if you focus to matter, then you're gonna win.
Yeah. Winning is an outcome. Mattering is something that you can work at. You can put meaning and you can put more of yourself in it. If you define yourself by winning, sometimes it's done, like Americans are used to saying, you don't win silver, you lose gold. But even that in today's world is considered toxic.
Right.
So yeah, mattering is a basic human need of all time. That's why if you go to Lascaux, you will see paintings of people wanting to portray their life many thousand years ago. If you don't matter and you don't continue to matter, then even winning doesn't feel good. So it's easier to feel good about mattering and not winning, but winning without mattering is there's no joy in that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this sounds also a bit for companies to, it's not just about winning in terms of like, achieving the sales, but it's also, it matters more to deliver a product that actually matters. It brings some sort of an impact and a change.
And let's say most companies were started by entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you there's not one company that will ever, at a certain time the accountants do take over. The managers and accountants do take over.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no valuable company ever created by managers and accountants. They keep the efficiency of a very valuable system going. They can optimize things. They can sustain things longer. They're less wasteful, but mattering is putting yourself into the story. And we must learn to adopt paintings or pictures that manifest the best of you in them. And today there's many paintings where nobody's in it. There is no us in them. So it becomes quite empty and void.
Right. I love the analogy to the painting. Painting without human at the core. When we talk about humans, you briefly mentioned AI, and I think it's quite important. We're now in a world, in a stage where I guess AI is used literally by everyone. Everyone talks about AI is coming. It's and we maybe paint these images of a futuristic world where we don't do anything and just AI does everything, and it's a world where brings us a bit of a fear where we're going to lose people losing jobs or AI is going to replace us. And how do you handle the equilibrium? Because AI is there. The extent is debatable, 100%, but AI is there and brings some benefits. And I'm just curious, how do you handle the equilibrium between AI and humans?
So I'll ask, is there an economy without carbon, without oil? I think there is one, and it has many benefits and many downsides. I would say AI is another form of economy. If you want to make it a lot of what we do will be fueled by it. It will have some negative sides, but even in a carbon economy, people are still doing what they do. Maybe a bit different, but there still will be entertainment. There still will be hope. There still will be creativity. There still will be friendships. There will still be the excitement of learning. Just will be, instead of carbon enabled, it will be AI enabled. But again, that's my simple way of looking at it.
The reality also is that AI has been with us for much longer than we can imagine. And it has been in the background without us possibly even knowing that it has been in your phones, in your cars, in some of your appliances. And it's quite interesting to see the surge of, I would say, in some cases, anxiety and others, excitement. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier in the podcast, that when situations emerge in our lives, we have a choice to either embrace it with excitement as something that allows us to grow and evolve and learn, or we look at it as something that is threatening our existence. So that's why we're seeing the emergence of these two extreme emotions that are exhibiting, as I said, exhibited by different people. And the reality is that it's really part of our own human evolution, right? When we're thinking about everything that has improved our lives over the many centuries, we are living in an era of exponential growth. And I think if we're able to embrace the astonishing power behind AI on how it could solve some of the most complex problems that we have not been able to solve until now, how we may find solutions to maybe disease or other complex challenges that we're facing, I think there's tremendous beauty in that. But what this means is that we as humans need to find a role in that complex world that is constantly shifting and evolving. And as I said, I think if we embrace it with excitement and wonder, there's a very beautiful future ahead of us. But what is clear is that from an organizational perspective, from a leadership perspective, we can no longer just simply close our eyes and say, no, I don't want to deal with AI. I don't want to bring it within my team, my organization. That is a definite way to ensure that you go out of business in the next couple of years. In fact, that's what Peter Diamandis has said, that in the next couple of years, we're going to have two types of companies, those that are using AI and those that are dead. So we need to make sure that we are equipping ourselves with the knowledge and the expertise and the right people to help us harness the power of AI in whichever business we may be in, and help our teams and people grow so we can work in tandem to really do even more wonderful things and amazing things in the future.
I guess longevity is related to change, as we discussed, and there is AI. It's a change, of course, but as we talked before, we have a choice how we're going to embrace it. Curiosity, Christophe, is one of your fundamentals, and I think here we need that curiosity and how we will tackle this choice, as Andrea said, with excitement. And embrace it with the living human also at the core. The Human Growth Code, this book, I would say maybe it's a starting point for a leader that is now trying to see how to apply those changes in their organization, in their team, even though I would say it has a lot of value even as your personal leader of yourself. And it could be applied to your personal instinct as well, and how you manage your own self. Because oftentimes we forget that we are humans as well, right? We forget that we should humanize even ourselves and how we behave with everyone around it. So what is your vision of how you would like society to appreciate this book and use it?
If those listening to your podcast can embrace it as an invitation for a more exciting future, that would make me very happy. We can open the door for people, and that's what we've done with this book. But we cannot force people to embrace change. I think it needs to come from within. And we need to be in harmony and at peace with the choices that we make. And one thing that we can begin exploring, if we are often resisting change, what we have seen, and there's extensive research around this, when we resist change, it's often tied to a low level of self-confidence or self-esteem. And so maybe begin there. Begin practicing different things that allow you to build your self-awareness, your self-acceptance, your sense of self-responsibility. And once you elevate that level of self-esteem, you can then be ready for growth and evolution with more excitement and enthusiasm.
Yeah, I would build on that. Business people especially are quite practical. So look at this as in rugby, I'm a rugby player, or let's say American football, you always have different playbooks on how to perform. Sometimes you need to take out the Relevance playbook. Sometimes you need to take out the relationship playbook. Sometimes you need to take out the resourceful, especially when you are trying to achieve goals that nobody can achieve alone. You better learn how to unlock the abundance and resourcefulness of others from your environment. And sometimes you just need to find relevance again in what you do. So in those moments, just use the book as a playbook, a blueprint, as an architect would say, to just start exploring those different avenues. So I would definitely say it's practical enough for anyone to access, and it's diverse enough for any group to at least start somewhere. So to never get stuck, because if you only have one path to move forward on, it can be very uphill.
Right.
For me, it's been very clear that, and that was the inspiration of working with Andrea. She made me aware of things that I was totally ignoring. Like the whole joy gap, or the flow. It's sometimes better to just actually work 1.5 hours a day than 8 or 9, because you have to keep up. So those practical ways, and looking at the science and looking at the application, has helped me step into growth areas where previously I needed to operate nearly on a spiritual plane to see it. Now I can quite easily have a broader perspective, both from a business problem perspective, a team problem perspective, but like you say, sometimes even from a personal problem perspective. So for me, it's a perfect antidote for not getting stuck.
An invitation for a perfect antidote for not getting stuck. Beautifully. Thank you so much. And thank you to both of you. We have a closing theme here in this podcast, and it's about a small visualization from the wonders that you've shared with us. So if that's okay with you, I would kindly ask you to close your eyes, and then we'll reflect together. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to relax. As you breathe in, feel the air filling your lungs. And as you breathe out, let go of any tension. Now imagine you're standing at the edge of a vast, futuristic city. Buildings of glass and steel rise around you, flowing softly with the light of advanced technology. The air is filled with energy of innovation, and everywhere you look, there are signs of progress. Autonomous vehicles, drones delivering goods, and robots assisting with daily tasks. As you walk through the city, you notice something strange. Despite all the technological marvels, something feels missing. The streets are quiet, and the faces of the people around you seem distant. Their eyes focused on screens rather than each other. There's efficiency, but where's the warmth? Where's the connection? Now imagine this city again, but in this time with a different focus. Picture AI and technology still present, but now they're woven seamlessly into the fabric of human life. Instead of replacing human interactions, they enhance them. You see AI being used to understand emotions better, to anticipate needs before they arise, and to create deeper connections. Businesses use AI not just to optimize profits, but to truly understand and serve their customers, employees, and communities. In this city, technology works as a partner to humans, not replacements. You see people laughing together, sharing ideas, and collaborating. Technology is there, but is harmonized with the heartbeat of human empathy and connection. So if you can open your eyes, it's a very quick question. How did those two cities make you feel? And is it possible for us to envision the second city rather than the first?
Absolutely. It's a choice, as we started out with. And it's not just about half empty glass or half full glass. It's the ability to see that diversity of human potential, human growth in everything that is around us, and that human growth can come from nature. It doesn't just have to be humans. It can also be what you see in nature, what the sunshine brings, what the ocean. So that's where the gratitude also comes from. There's so much that's been given to us to appreciate. So, and I love the technology too, because it has also enabled so much. The fact that we're having this conversation in 3 different places,
Right.
and so many other people can also share in our story. It's wonderful, and that's part of the first and the second city.
To answer your question, from my perspective, I fully agree with Christophe. Yes, I think the second city is definitely accessible and possible. And I would say it is also needed in the context of our reality as humans. I'm sure you're aware of the grand study by Harvard that looked at graduates from Harvard for over 75 years. And when they were analyzing what were the key dimensions that really allowed people to live fully and joyfully, it was those relationships that actually were helping us to achieve that, but to also help us live healthier and longer lives. So one thing also that I want to mention is that however we choose to interact with technology and AI in the future, let's never lose that human connection. And let's never also lose our capacity to tap into our intuition. Because AI may answer a lot of the things that are analytical, fact-based, and so on. But one thing that I have not seen AI do, at least at this moment, maybe not yet, is to really tap into that intuitive power that we each have to choose a path that we embark on, and to trust that intuition much, much more, rather than always be guided only by our head. Let us be guided by our hearts, by our intuition, and let us also embrace more awe in that second city that you describe, because life will be so much more beautiful.
At the end of the day, it's we're humans, and our growth is human. So thank you so much. It's been really a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Until our minds meet again, enjoy the inner wonder you're creating. Thanks, everybody. See you next episode.